So for an analog, for the device that we just talked about, so for a digital analog to digital, not analog to digital converter, for a data acquisition system, we have a few phases. We have the signal conditioning phase, and we're going to talk about that here, and then we have the actual like digital analog to digital communication phase. So we're going to talk about the signal conditioning phase first, right? So for signal conditioning, there's two ways that we typically look at our data. The first is using analog filters. So these are typically high pass or low pass filters. So for analog signals, a lot of times we use low pass filters, and we basically try to filter out any data that's above our sampling rate, right? So we want to eliminate any noise due to aliasing using low pass filters. The other type of signal that we have is a digital filter. So a digital filter typically converts their discrete data to the frequency domain, and that helps remove undesired frequencies and helps convert back to the time domain using an inverse DFT. All right. So that's typically done on like the computer end, and then the moving average as well is just basically you sample data and you average the 3 to 10 closest data points to get a smoothed out signal. Um, in addition to filters, typically we have amplifiers in the signal conditioning phase. All right, so we can use you can typically increase the data acquisition system there, and then typically the gains of amplifiers can be controlled using a gain resistor or logic switches set by software. So it depends on the type of amplifier that you have, right? We use those already for the load cell, and we'll use them again going on in the class as well. So typically, you can use amplifiers typically for very small signals, sometimes even secondary signals. So they might have smaller. So sometimes in order to take those high frequency signals, they might have smaller amplitudes. You can use a lot of times before those things are we can improve those signals by using some offsets. We can subtract the primary signal using a differential op amp, or we can use a high pass filter. All right. Uh, so and there's some cases where actually your signal is too high that you're trying to measure, so you can use a voltage divider in that case to reduce the signal into the range of the data acquisition system. Okay, so then a few other uh, circuits that sometimes are used is some devices they'll actually give you a current signal instead of a voltage signal. So if you pass that current through a known resistor, typically you can measure the voltage across that resistor, and you can then determine what the current was going through that coming from the original transducer. And then a nulling circuit is basically used to reduce error due to a small offset voltage. So, for example, there's a lot of times you might have like you want to like tear a system. An offset nulling circuit basically allows you to do it physically instead of just subtracting out the voltage later on in the computer. So that's all you need to know, is that these are two ways that you can convert harder to measure signals. One if it's in current mode, or one if it has an unwanted initial voltage. And these two circuits can be used.